All right, welcome, Blockheads. It is Wednesday, November 13th, 2024. This is episode 99 of Business on the Block. This week, we're tackling blockchain, AI, and the TikTok resume. We'll explain how blockchain levels the playing field for anyone building AI models. You're going to hear about OpenAI's biggest obstacle right now. And forget LinkedIn, Gen Z turning to TikTok to find themselves jobs. We'll tell you all about this right now. Business on the Block provides analysis and insight into the digital trends shaping the business world. I am joined, as always, by my lovely co-host, Michelle Peterson-Clark.
Morning, everyone, or afternoon for you guys. It's morning here in Australia.
Michelle streaming in from the other side of the world. This is, you're really doing double duty here. And local lazy, Mike Neubauer.
Live from the past for Michelle.
So if anyone wants the lotto numbers, let me know. I'll send them through.
I'm going to take us into story number one. Blockchain is changing how AI is developed, accessed, and monetized. It's according to a story out of Forbes right now. Most AI models are controlled by large corporations, as we well know. However, blockchain is democratizing this. It's enabling wider collaboration and more secure and transparent access to AI model building. Blockchain introduces a new funding model to AI development. This is basically tokenization for those who are familiar. Tokenizing the AI model build allows for fractional ownership, and in that model, individuals can invest and benefit from the revenue generated by these AI models. So you basically have this way to build models without having to go through Silicon Valley proper as it's developing. For thoughts around this, we're going to start with you, Mike. This is closest to your world. What is your take on this Forbes article?
First of all, blockchain back in the nucleus of all of this, right? So, we've constantly stated that that's the technology that's going to live. It's not going anywhere, and it's just a matter of time before it becomes the infrastructure of a lot of these AI powered models. What I find most interesting about this type of solution, this energy solution, let's just call it, what does this do to the billions of dollars that all these monster tech companies have started to invest into nuclear power plants and all these energy requirements that AI is actually needing? If something can be secured, transacted, and stored on a blockchain, that opens up a whole new level of not necessarily ownership. I think you get caught in the weeds on a lot of those types of things, especially when it comes to blockchain. But I think it's really more so about the transparency. Who's interacting with these things? When are they interacting with it? What is the overall link in the chain, and how does that lead to the next link? Again, just in its basic fundamental fundamental roots, blockchain is nothing more than a digital file cabinet. So if this can store all the data for the input output that AI is producing, that's exactly what we're looking for. I'm just curious to know that if you're using nodes that are placed around the world, and again, validators can get paid on the validation of those equations. What does that do for the energy sector that's being heavily invested into at this point?
I just real quickly, though, there's a delineation between centralization and blockchain in general, how blockchain works. I think there's going to be a bit of a tug of war down the road with this. But before we get to that, Michelle, what is your thoughts on this? Blockchain being democratized, or rather is democratizing AI's development?
Like we've talked about this kind of stuff before, haven't we? Where and as Mike mentioned, we've thought that this is kind of what could happen because it would be helpful for that and would also be able to spread the load, I guess, if you think about it. Because at the moment, what we see is that there's a couple of companies that are really dominating the AI landscape. Things happen, like if AWS went down tomorrow, is probably 70% of websites and things in the entire world would just disappear. And so being able to, help make it not so centralized as it is now, I think has to be a positive thing.
I think this ties back to your boy Elon Musk at some point, though, Michelle. I feel like really Grok is he's been the only Silicon Valley name, if I could even call him that that has talked about a decentralized AI build.
Yes, to be fair to him, that's true.
We'll
That's
see how
the
that.
nicest thing I'm ever going to say about him.
We'll see how that goes. One point of note in the article, for those who don't take the time to read it, the global AI market is expected to reach $1.4 trillion with a T by 2030. That's in the next 5 years. That's a lot of money. So as we know, AI continues to grow.
How is that number measured? Like, we have these insane dollar figures that are being thrown at it, and again, we're going to come up to scenarios where they're just either not moving fast enough, or there's just not enough budget, or they're under budget, or they're raking in all this money. Like, first of all, where the hell do they get numbers like that? Is it investment dollars that are going into it? Is it how much infrastructure is being built? Is it how much can be offset by utilizing AI to offset additional costs? Like, where are they coming up with this number?
Mike, I spent 30 years selling technology. I can tell you, they just make these numbers up.
I was about to say, economists always make up numbers. So,
I mean, they're guesstimates, obviously. No one knows. You're right, Mike. But there is no doubt that AI has been like the dominant force in the technology development. The last 2 years have been nothing but AI stories.
I wonder if AI came up with AI's number.
oh, the irony.
Snake eating tail. All right.
What am I worth? $9 trillion.
I'm taking this right to story number 2. All right. This one is coming to us from Yahoo, finance.yahoo. And by the way, I'm going to grab a conspiracy hat for this one. If you guys mind, if we do a little bit, I think there's a little conspiracy behind this, which I'll explain in a second. Where's my, here we are. OpenAI struggling with.
Can I just say before you start that I carried in 2 suitcases. I had limited things I had to bring to Australia, but my conspiracy crown was one of them. Just like
for any of our
I would have
listeners,
been more impressed if you wore it on the plane.
If you ever need to move between continents, make sure you bring your aluminum shower cap and crown, just in case. OpenAI struggling with AI improvement slowdown. For those not following the story, this is new last 2 days. OpenAI's flagship model, Orion, is not improving at the expected rate. The company is exploring how to improve the tech without any new training data. That's the problem. And specifically, the company is considering how to train it on synthetic data produced by other AI models. So to put this in layman's terms, they've run out of the internet to train these things. And now that they're not improving at the same rate they were, it's a concern. Thoughts around this? Michelle, you're giggling. Let's start with you.
Well, it had to happen eventually, didn't it? I mean, with all things, there's a flurry at the beginning. Everyone jumps on board. People that have new ideas that weren't thought of by the original people start to develop that. At some point, it's been insane, hasn't it? I mean, if we think back to the first 8 or 9, 10 months when ChatGPT was released, and then what happened in that sort of 10 months after that, we have to get to a point at some stage where things settle a bit and what we've got and what we can use and how we can use it starts to become clearer to everyone. And then, inevitably that means that the rate of improvement has to be slower because until something new is thought of or invented, how can they do better than what they've already done?
Mike, what do you think about this? Where does this take us?
Well, I would like to know where the finish line is. Like, how can you measure the speed of development and criticize it without understanding where you actually want to get to?
Time out. Artificial general intelligence is their finish line.
It's not a finish line. It's a benchmark. I don't think they're in a spot to say that, okay, once they achieve that, they're going to just, retire on a beach with some margaritas. But without the destination in mind, how can you actually measure the speed of development? And again, we're so damn spoiled at this point, whereas like a handful of years ago, this wasn't even considered possible, let alone now we're at this state where we're actually bitching about how fast or how, unfast it's actually developing. And I really feel like this is problematic because now, first of all, it's a cry for more money. Second of all, more resources. And third, it's going to force people to create these leaps that are not necessarily productive, but show progress. And I fear that we're going to be taking this technology and running with it in a direction that's either not necessarily the best possible use case of where it's at right now, or B, it's going to end up in somebody's hands that obviously has a little bit more malintent to it, in an effort to try to springboard it more into data collection services or figuring out ways to monetize using user engagement. All the things that we've already seen occur with users on search engines or any sort of social platforms. We're seeing history sort of repeat itself. And at the end of the day, again, somebody is making the determination that this is not, advancing as fast. Somebody or some AI. I don't know.
First of all, Mike, the, malintent. I mean, is there any more malintent than what's going on with Sam right now? I mean, let's be honest. But secondly, I think that I'm going to support your comment with the justification here. Valuation justification is the game right now for this company. They're valued so highly. They have so much capital that they've taken in. They have to report to Microsoft. They're under the gun. This is not some small startup like that we might be running out of our basement. These guys have to make numbers happen. And when they can't turn the profit spigot the way they've been doing, and the market is acclimated to ridiculous returns now repeatedly, no tree grows to the sky, as they say in Wall Street. I think this company is going to suffer the other end of that. And to your point, yes, there's scrabble now to make money happen. The one word that comes to my mind is hallucination. You start using synthetic data, I worry what this thing ends up becoming.
Well, that's just it too. I mean, you're talking about data that is not necessarily, I mean, it's manufactured, right? I mean, you're photocopying a photocopy at this point, right? Like, these AI models are generating synthetic, input for this overall model. I mean, at some point it's going to get severely watered down.
Another concern,
therefore unreliable, and therefore less quality of a product that people are actually going to be interested in.
The term is people will recognize as bias in the data, but I almost think it's more just accuracy. When machines are making data about humans to train this thing, that's concerning.
Well, again, who is it intended to provide that data to? Is it a predictive model based around human engagement or behavior? What's the primary purpose, and how is it slowing down, right? So is it slowing down in the sense that it cannot predict or calculate users' interaction on a particular search history, for example? Like, if that's the case, then that has a dollar figure attached to it with the monetization of the data collection. So if this is a model that's, for example, is designed to improve predictive behaviors within search engines or within social media interactions, then, again, this is leaning more towards that malintent type use case, as well as, potentially shifting people's mindsets on how they absorb content on the internet, right? This is another medium of control for, information. And if they have the ability to at least provide a sense of validity to the information that they're pumping out there, and people buy into it, then yeah, it will become as addictive as something like social media. But I don't think it's there yet. And if that's what they're hoping to accomplish, and that's the speed at which they're not progressing, then again, we're in for a real serious issue about the use case of how this is evolving.
I think that's why we're wearing conspiracy hats here. I seriously, joking aside, I worry where they're going to take this thing.
Yeah. I mean, okay. I think that there's, I thought Mike was frozen there for a minute with googly eyes, but there you go. I mean, if we just pull back a bit, that second paragraph, the last line of that says that, they're worried about the fact that there's less improvements from when ChatGPT 3 to ChatGPT 4 was released, right? So let's compare them, say, to Apple. I mean, Apple have been releasing a new iPhone. Originally, I think they did it every 2 years for a little while, and now they're doing it every year. So there's a new iPhone every year. Sometimes the improvements are like minuscule, but people are still lining up at the stores for kilometers or miles or whatever outside to get on the day of release to get the new iPhone. So I think part of OpenAI's issue is going to be how they create that brand loyalty like Apple has, for example. So, I don't necessarily think it will be a problem for them if things are improving, but not at such a greater rate. But the problems will come if they can't keep people loyal and have, the champions like the likes of Apple and Disney do, for example.
I'm going to draw one distinction on that, Michelle. Mike, did you want to say something? I'm sorry.
I'm going to draw probably the same distinction, so go.
I was going to go with product versus service. In the case of
I was
Apple,
going to say hardware versus software.
Yep, same thing. Right.
Yeah.
It's one thing if I show off my new phone to my family, that's cool. But if I'm showing off that there's a new iOS software that powers it, no one cares.
Well, it's more than that. I mean, you're talking about the consumability of a product versus a service, right? So, for example, I must have upgraded my Microsoft Office 10 times over every time I bought a new computer. But chances of me upgrading my Microsoft Office without upgrading a computer, very low, right?
Yes,
so,
sure.
with the hardware, I think is the sellability for something like Apple, because it forces people to either exchange or upgrade, which kind of keeps them coming back to bite the carrot. OpenAI might need to move into more of a hardware space in order to stay competitive, but there's obviously, well, they have an interesting business model where they don't necessarily have to, because there's a lot of costs affiliated with going to a physical product, right? There's manufacturing, there's logistics, there's liabilities, there's all sorts of stuff that you sort of have on the back burner versus you being able to license out your technology to the Apples of the world, the Androids of the world, the guys that can already implement the technology using their hardware. So it's an interesting model, but I agree with you that they need to figure out something in order to keep the user coming back and keeping the user to upgrade to the next version. And I don't know what that looks like. Right now, they have a monthly subscription model. I'm assuming that's still kicking ass. So many different elements of our day-to-day existence have sort of fell onto the shoulders of relying on AI, whether good, bad, or indifferent. But bottom line is people are almost utilizing this technology like they would a cell phone plan, right? You need your cell phone plan.
You're describing what Facebook Meta has done, Mike. They've moved it to hardware product with the Ray-Bans. Same thing.
Yeah, but I don't know how successful that is. Again, we can look it up on Threads. Maybe there's a nice article there.
All right, I'm taking a sip to story.
No, I was just gonna say that I think that they're spending $7 billion a year anyway. What's another billion to manufacture some stuff?
Well, again, they'll cry they need more money to do it.
For those who remember, Threads is at 275 million active monthly users.
Right.
All right. Taking us to story 3. All right. This is our chief story for the show here. TikTok is becoming a job board for Gen Z. Yes, you heard that right. TikTok is becoming a job board now where both companies and candidates are seeking each other actively on the platform. According to the data in this article, which is out of Tube Filter, 1 in 5 Gen Zs has gotten interviews or the job through TikTok. Many creators are posting videos with the hashtag TikTok resume, and this has become a trend. It's more than a trend. It's the younger generation's version of LinkedIn is what it looks like. Just for those who don't know, on average, Gen Z right now is between the age of 15 and 25 years old. These folks are not looking for jobs on LinkedIn. They are doing it on TikTok. Michelle, we'll start with you. What do you think about this? I think you were the first one to comment on the story.
And I think the comment I put in our chat was a
face palm.
Look, I actually really don't know what to say. Like, until the older generation who used to employ people through the normal means die, I'm not sure that there is going to be a whole raft of companies who are going to be going to the likes of TikTok to find new employees. Talent's
hard to get right now.
Is it? Like,
well, good talent.
I know of people people are applying for jobs all over the place, and not very few people are getting hired, if that makes any sense. Every job, like if you go to LinkedIn, for example, if you look at people, companies that put jobs up there can be 200 applications within the first 30 minutes of a job being put up, right? So I would imagine on TikTok, if jobs started to go up there might be 100,000 applications because, there's.
The article doesn't break it down, but I'd love to see the industries that I would imagine, like performing arts and stuff like that, music, you're going to get TikToks. But other than that, yeah.
TikTok influencer.
Sorry, Mike?
TikTok influencer.
Yeah.
What better place to post a job resume than there?
Well, actually, for those listening to Gary lately, he's talking about AI influencers replacing human influencers, which I agree with.
Well,
Itana.
It's going to be replacing a lot of these, I don't want to say useless, but definitely replaceable type jobs that read off of a script. Look, my take on this is it's really, I really don't care, because frankly, the people that are looking for help on TikTok are going to get sort of what they bargained for. Not to say that everybody on TikTok is a moron, but I'm pretty sure that if they're on TikTok religiously, and therefore they would potentially still be on TikTok when you hire them.
TikTok sponsorship is declining with every word out of your mouth.
Yeah. So once again, it proves me correct that, they didn't go to Threads looking for jobs. They stuck here with something that, they like. But, I actually want to take this sort of as an opportunity to compare it to what Elon is sort of envisioning with Twitter or X, whatever we're calling it these days. He wants it to be a one-stop shop for a lot of things. Like, in a way, TikTok is sort of evolving into that as well. For good, bad, or indifferent, there's still a lot of technological nuances that TikTok has, which are somewhat security problematic in my, operational tech opinion. There's too much image recognition software built into that algorithm that really feeds your feed with all sorts of different crap. So it's going to be interesting to see how that particular platform evolves, but this could almost become the Twitter 2, where it becomes sort of like a one-stop shop for a lot of these things.
Two things I want to add to that. Oh yeah, Michelle, you go first.
No, I was going to say that if you are a company who wants to build out your TikTok strategy.
Sorry about that. Aaron's keystroke. We do this live, folks.
If you are a company who wants to build out your TikTok strategy, then obviously it makes sense that you go to TikTok and you look for someone. However, if you then want that 20-year-old who has no other experience other than TikToking, or as Mike would say, shaking their ass on TikTok, then there's going to be a problem, isn't there? And imagine if you then said to this person, oh, well, you live in New York, our offices are in New York, you've got to come to the office 3 days a week. Their minds are just going to explode. So, if that's what your strategy is, then I think that's fine. But if you are looking for, and the other thing about this article that I found really annoying, I guess, is that the company Jubilee, or whatever they're called, reached out to this person because there were all these people on TikTok going, oh yeah, she's fantastic, you really need her, you should have her. Like, I mean, is that what the new referees are these days? Like, I just...
Two points I want to add to. Number one, Elon's been distracted the last year, as we all know. He hasn't built anything towards the whole tokenization, the e-commerce thing, all that stuff that X was going to become. Web3 never happened. So, but now that he's like the man in charge of tech, apparently in the United States under Donald Trump, president-elect,
the Department of Government Efficiency,
right, that may change. So keep an eye on that. Number two is the U.S. banned TikTok to take effect this October last month. That was pushed back till this coming February. So in the next few months, it will be determined whether or not America, ejects TikTok or not. So all of these are factors. But I do think it's interesting that TikTok itself is being used in a different way by the younger generation. I almost think it's out of desperation.
Well, we talk
Perhaps
we talk a lot about advertising on this show, right? Like, and as a business, you obviously want to go to where your audience is. Well, as an employer who's trying to find help, you need to go to where people are in order to seek out that help. But I don't know, like that's a pendulum that swings pretty hard in both directions, right? So it's either people are out there looking for jobs and they can't find them, at which point they can post bitching videos about how, you know, they send out resumes and nobody's going to hire them. And maybe that lands on TikTok. But I feel like, you know, as a business, if you're running, you know, let's say a medium to large size business, and you're having difficulty finding help, you need to at least go to places and not necessarily recruit, but at least advertise that you're searching for that help. And that's what I see sort of the value of this coming about. You know, hiring people or doing any sort of networking, something similar to what a LinkedIn provides. I don't see this type of platform generating that type of pull just quite yet. Mostly because, again, you're dealing with kids that aren't used to what it takes to even, you know, go through a job interview.
Hold on, though, Mike. I'm going to counter that. I think that these kids that don't know the traditional process of going through a quote unquote middleman, headhunter, recruiter, and won't know or care to do that, are just going to go right on the platforms. I think these platforms represent a threat to that whole career, you know, thing.
Again, it really depends on if people are going to hire them from that effort. You know, if you're a company that has shareholders and people to answer to, and you've always hired this recruitment company to find you the best possible candidate based around, you know, their sort of weeding out the people that aren't qualified, you know, you're much more likely to take that risk as opposed to going on TikTok and throwing a dart at the Gen Z board.
Right. It's a good way to put it.
You know, and the other thing is too, now the HR people have to become proficient in TikTok resumeing. Like, I mean, the whole thing is, I don't know, I'm too old.
I know. I have an issue with that, Michelle. I feel like traditional corporate world, don't forget, I come out of finance. These folks know nothing about these platforms, but yet that is where business happens. So I know that HR doesn't want to learn TikTok. Sorry. It sucks that the horse doesn't work anymore on the roads, but you gotta learn how to drive a car now. And that's not directed at you. That's more directed at the folks who don't like content. All right. Yeah. I'm going to take us to the speed round for those who care. This purpose of the speed round is quick hits, stories that didn't make the actual run, but we thought were interesting to mention to you guys. All right, this is coming, I guess, closer to your world, Michelle. The Beatles' AI-assisted track has been nominated for 2 Grammy Awards. The song Now and Then, released last year, is up for Record of the Year and Best Rock Performance. For those who read the story, McCartney had found one of Lennon's old demos from 1978, and they used AI to clean up and finish the recording. Thoughts on this one? Mike, we'll start with you.
Aren't we closer to England now? But you know, this doesn't surprise me for a number of reasons. We talked about Prince and we talked about all these AI tools and, you know, these new technologies that are going to be brought in. But if you listen to any new modern pop crap that's coming out now, it's all realistically AI generated anyway. It's all some computer, you know, software that threw together these beats that somebody just like mumbles into for a while. And then they just stretch out their voice to make it sound like it fits in line with the way that the music was generated. AI related. Again, I feel like this is just an example of us using the term and just trying to generate a couple bucks from it.
Michelle, thoughts on your former home Terps big band?
Well, I was thinking about Don McLean's song American Pie, actually, where he talks about the day the music died. And I know that there would be a large number of artists, musicians who were brilliant at their craft who have died, who would be rolling over in their graves. I think it's fine that he's done that. He's found an old demo tape and used AI to help him create a song. I think that that's great. And from a nostalgic point of view, I think that it's wonderful. But ultimately, you know, there are still good artists around who create music that is really good. And yes, they put techno things or they use the, you know, synthesized music and all of that kind of stuff now. But, you know, every now and then a song comes along that's just, you know, original sounding, good words, and everybody loves it, you know. And so I hope
Richmond, north of Richmond.
The White Stripes, baby.
Richmond, north of Richmond.
I hope that I'm dead before artificial music is the only thing that's around.
All right, speed round. I'm gonna knit together everything you just said, Michelle. Here's some rock and roll history for those who don't know, and this will include you two. American Pie, written by Don McLean, was about Buddy Holly. Those who don't know
Yes,
this,
I know.
But here's the thing: Buddy Holly and the Crickets, the band name, was the inspiration for what the Beatles had to pick their name. They used Buddy Holly's band name Crickets as an inspiration for what they named the Beatles. All right, taking us to story number 2. I guess this is story 2, right? This is a silly story I just found hilarious. AI has taken over taste testing at restaurants. Be hard to get through this one.
Now,
AI has proven.
hang on.
Yeah, I don't know where to go with this. AI has proven it has better taste than its human creators. Penn State researchers are using AI-powered electric tongues to analyze the taste of food and beverage. This machine achieved a remarkable 95% accuracy rate in detecting watered-down milk, spoiled juice. It basically outperformed the 80% accuracy rate achieved by humans. Thoughts on this one? Michelle, we'll start with you.
So can AI book a table at a restaurant and become a food critic? That is where the rubber hits the road, let's be honest.
Mike, what do you think about AI as our food taster?
It's a computer program that has the ability to measure the chemical consistency of something. You can label it again with anything you want, but it's not tasting anything.
This reminded me when I read the story of the scene in The Matrix when they're all complaining about the food on the craft, that it always tastes like chicken. And the kid was like, that's because there was a robot who makes the food and it doesn't know what food tastes like. So it makes everything taste like chicken.
But yeah, in The Matrix, he had this nice, big, juicy steak, which, allowed him to think that it was something else.
All right. Recap of what we did this week. Story number 1, blockchain AI, blockchain democratizing AI by helping the new tokenization model. OpenAI is struggling with their AI improvement for Orion because they've run out of internet to train it on. And TikTok is now the new job board for Gen Z. What is the key takeaways we need to know about these 3 stories? What's the most important? Mike, we'll start with you.
What's the key takeaway? AI is still very much in the driver's seat. Blockchain is the engine under the hood. And, kids are desperate, so they're looking for jobs on TikTok now.
Michelle, what do you think was the most important thing we hit?
Ditto what Mike said. I was going to say that surely we've surpassed my prediction of 40 shows that we talk about AI.
Yeah, I mean, we actually, this did not intend to become an AI-focused program, but it is the news and the digital space is AI-driven. I think the key story that struck me was the OpenAI struggling with their improvement on Orion. The fact that I am very concerned about this artificial programming with fake data. God only knows it's hard enough to manage AI coming into the world. It's even worse when the AI coming into the world isn't really based off of human engagement.
Yeah. I mean, there's enough fake news around as it is anyway, without it being made up more by something that isn't human.
And
well,
to
it's
that
the snake
point,
eating its own tail.
This is a theme that's come up prior on this show, but I want to mention, I think that the blockchain will become the solution for the fake content we're going to see. It's already starting, where you'll have to register your content on your blockchain first before you put it out. So I'll know that Mike's content or Michelle's content is theirs.
Again, I feel like that's just like, it's not a fail-safe, right? Because it's just an additional step that nobody's going to validate, right? I mean, you're going to have a couple people that'll read the code, but for the most part, people are just going to continue to swipe, scan, and, read headlines.
I agree, but at least there's a place to go back and check.
I understand, but like even you could put anything on a blockchain, doesn't make it real.
But I'll know, for example, if I put the piece out now and you put it out, these fake, during the presidential campaign, you had these hilariously fake videos of both sides. They were fake, right? But meanwhile, you still want to go check and be like, this, I can prove that this came out after this other thing, whatever.
Did you actually go out and try to prove that? Or did you just
absorb it and
move on with your life?
When Disney comes and sues Business on the Block for stealing their IP, there's going to need to be a place to go back and check.
Again, you can put anything on a blockchain, doesn't mean that it's real. Right. You can tokenize anything, whether it's an article, whether it's, anything. It doesn't. It's just, again, a file storage, right? So if you think about it, it's a sequential way to store your data in a means to always go back and review when it was first published. If you're talking about the first to do something, then yes, it's a viable solution for it. But the validity behind it, the realism behind it, it's not going to authenticate whether something is legit or not. There still needs to be additional pieces built behind the infrastructure in order to have that type of credibility. Now, if you put out something this week, everybody calls you a nut job, and next week it becomes true, now your validity goes up because you could point to a period of time where you actually said that something, whatever it was. I'll always make the argument you're a nut job, but at least you'll have a point in history to point to where you can prove me wrong.
Guilty as charged. All right.
We should be putting our episodes on the blockchain every week because we predict the future way more than anyone else.
We should probably RSS this thing at some point. All right. We're going to be back next week on Wednesday, 4 p.m. Eastern time. We thank you guys for joining us. As always, shout out to the 4:30. Oh, sorry. 4:30. We had time change.
So now we can say 4:30 Eastern, 9:30 UTC, and 8:30 EST in Australia.
It seems like a lot of times being thrown. I was told there'd be no math on this exam.
It's just 4:30. It's the real time here in the East Coast of the United States of America.
Oh boy,
everybody
Greenwich
else bows
Mean
down to us.
London has an issue with that. All right. So this, for those who don't know, this is your weekly insight into the digital business revolution. The purpose of this program is to have an upscale business conversation around what's happening in the world of AI, blockchain, and social media, and how technology is changing what we do. How do we take advantage of that? We'll be back next week. Final thoughts from my two colleagues, Michelle, Mike?
I'd like to say thanks to Mike for not rubbing in that Threads ensured that Donald got reelected.
Let's move along.
I got
no
4
politics.
years of that. But remember, buy Dogecoin and follow us on Threads.
Thanks, everybody.